I know that the British soul is awakening, stirring. Thousands, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people in the UK who have no love at all for the UK, but yet live here. I think we have to start saying very clearly, if you don't like it here, go. These people came into our house. Many of them broke into our house illegally. I don't want them to live here. I don't want them here. There are a variety of versions of your life which you can play at any moment. There is the life of hiding what you think or believe. There's the one of repeating mantras other people repeat. And there's a certain attraction to that second one in particular because you know how things are going to go. If you just go along with every lie that your era says, you have examples of where you might be. You might end up a good, low-grade functioning civil servant, for instance, or you might end up a producer of documentary films or whatever. You might end up in some left-wing profession and highly thought of by your peers. But it wouldn't be your life. It wouldn't be your life at all. It's someone else's life. It's a life off the shelf. I'll say those things and I'll become that person.
A life of truth is undeniably more fulfilling, though far more demanding. It requires the courage to confront uncomfortable realities, challenge prevailing narratives, and stand firm against societal pressures. Blindly following mantras may provide comfort, a sense of belonging, and even temporary peace, but it ultimately breeds stagnation and self-deception. Douglas Murray's argument about the distortion of Western history aligns with this idea. When history is manipulated to fit ideological agendas, society loses its ability to learn from the past. The mainstream media plays a crucial role in this, often pushing narratives that many of its own figures likely don't even believe in. But the paycheck, the ultimate modern leash, keeps them in line, making compliance the price of security.
The exciting thing about not doing that is if you just say things as you see them, which is what I've always done, for better or for worse, it's never entirely clear what the next step looks like. Never entirely clear what the path ahead looks like, although you can have some guesses. But at least it's my life. At least I'm living it. It's mine.
This is the slavery hack of our era, a manufactured reality enforced by fear. Would you rather live in blissful ignorance or endure the weight of truth and shape your own destiny?
I much urge other people to take this approach as well. There are some downsides in terms of, let's say, security of your life, of predictability of your life, but also who wants a predictable life? Jordan Peterson and I have been talking about this a lot recently. The way I would frame it is, if you avoid going off into just repeating the mantras and having the a la carte life, if you avoid that, then your life will be an adventure, as mine has been. And so far it's been a very exciting adventure, one I've enjoyed enormously, enjoy enormously, and have what's more the pleasure of other people telling me that I've helped them. And that's one of the best things you can get, is young people, old people, people of any age, background, saying that you've given them encouragement or helped them to say what they think, to say truths that they've intuited.
Courage is a heavy burden in an era where a single misstep can lead to swift cancellation, a chilling reality that keeps many young people in silent compliance. Yet, as Douglas Murray argues, there is only one true regret: to have stayed silent when truth demanded defiance, and only one real solution: to speak, no matter the cost.
The people that are in a really bad position in that way are people who have already organized their lives along that predictable trajectory I just said, and have spent their time keeping their heads down and believe that someday, perhaps when they retire, perhaps when they have sufficient money, perhaps when they've paid off the mortgage, they'll suddenly start saying what they think. Might be a bit late by then. Are you sure that if you put it off, there will be a day when you have the grand reveal of the real you? It's not my observation that often happens. As for young people starting off, obviously it's not for me to advocate acts of moral kamikaze courage, but I think it is the case that you should be careful. Certainly don't say things you don't mean or overstate them for effect or anything like that. Is it better, if you're a young person starting off, to be in a relationship with somebody who says the same contemptibly predictable things as you, which you don't believe and she or he may not believe either? Is it a good thing to be in a relationship where you're both lying to each other about your beliefs? Almost certainly not. Is it a good idea to go into a profession where you do things that you are not proud of, which make you feel smaller, callow? Probably not, almost certainly not. So I would say the thing to do, and it's the same thing with friends, by the way. Sometimes people say to me, my friends don't listen to me when I talk, or they don't seem to care. I said, you've got to find different friends. You've got to find friends who value you. You've got to. You shouldn't be around people who don't value you, because then you'll end up not valuing yourself either. I would say start on the adventure of your life as soon as you can, and it'll be wonderful. You see, the thing that I think is changing is that people who are majority populations in the West, and minorities as well, but crucially majority populations, have been effectively told to be smaller, dampen themselves down, restrain themselves, make themselves small, shriveled little beings, and go through life and don't leave a carbon footprint and die in a carbon neutral manner, which isn't a very appealing life. And young men in particular, young women as well, I think are rebelling against that. High time. But I think they're rebelling against that. They're rightly saying, I sense I'm more than that. And I have more than that in me. And I don't want to restrain it. I want to run with it.
And according to Murray, they just need to know how. And they definitely need guidance.
But I sense that era of harmlessness being the greatest virtue, just being a harmless, shriveled individual, is not appealing. And it is not working on the smartest people coming up. And if I have a source of hopefulness, it is that the people coming up are, they're really smart. They've seen through the era.
Times are changing, and no amount of revision can alter the past. History is not a canvas for modern sensitivities. It is what happened, unfiltered and unchangeable.
As my late friend Clive James once said, we're here because history happened. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about, I don't know, the bombing of Dresden or Nagasaki, to use a couple of recent examples? What are you going to do about it? Cringe about it? Be powerless because of it? Be endlessly apologetic because of it? Why? What good would it do? Who would it bring back? Who would it placate? So the first thing is, the whole thing is in many ways simply pointless. The second thing is that obviously we've been through this period where what happens is Western democracies are expected to endlessly self-flagellate about our pasts. And it's some kind of, maybe you could say, overcorrection towards a certain view of the past that was prevalent, let's say, in the late 19th century. And secondly, we're not doing this just to ourselves. I'm not having that anymore. Absolutely not. What we're wading through is a pile of horse shit. Okay? We are wading through this because, and I can tell you how to get out of it, among other things, which is to say, I'm sorry, who were the Maoris historically? Were they men and women of peace who sat around idyllically farming and having an Edenically civilized life? Or were they brutal, brutal people who did terrible things to each other and to people they met? I'm sorry, I'm not willing to have my own culture ransacked and turned through this lens of pure evil, and simultaneously be expected to pretend that the Maoris or the indigenous people of Australia were these proto-Gandhi-esque figures. No, this is totally untrue. And it's an obvious attempt to subjugate people in the West to a false ideology and a false version of our own past. So no, I mean, all of the sort of, the combination of the two of these things, the wild distortion of Western history, the negative interpretation of all of Western history, is bad on its own, but combined with this Edenic, Vaseline-lensed interpretation of everyone else, no, you might just about get away with one of those things, but not both, and not both at the same time. No way.
Many immigrants arrive in a new country not to embrace its values, but to transplant their own, often resisting integration while expecting the host nation to accommodate them.
We thought the barbarians were at the gate. Turns out that quite a number of them have got through the gate, and they're in our midst.
Oh yeah. I've been through the gate for a long time. We just haven't known what to do about it.
This creates a cultural friction where the very principles that made the country desirable, freedom, stability, and prosperity, are eroded by imported traditions that sometimes clash with them. And history has shown that without assimilation, societal cohesion unravels.
As the situation is changing, actually, I think there are things now able to be discussed and suggested, which were not able to be suggested or discussed even a few years ago. My view is that, I mean, for instance, there's a sort of idiot conversation you can have when it comes to these things, which consists of something like the following. I would say, if this is a bit of a typical BBC question for you, you see. Let's say, John Anderson, but how do we balance the issues between a liberal society and then illiberalism on the other hand? We've had 20 years of that. We've had 20 years of these silly games and navel-gazing parlor games. It's too late to keep playing those games. We have thousands, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people in the UK who have no love at all for the UK, but yet live here. I don't want them to live here. I don't want them here. They came under false pretenses. Many of them came illegally and continue to come illegally, and we don't want them here. And I'm perfectly willing to say that because it needs to be said. The police in the UK have failed by allowing people to march through our streets, past our monuments and holy places, but clearly they've lost control of the streets. Now, is it time to send in the army at some point? Probably yes. But if the army will not be sent in, then the public will have to go in, and the public will have to sort this out themselves. And it'll be very, very brutal. It'll be very brutal because there is no the soul of England, the soul of Britain is about to be trampled on very, very visibly by people who are gleeful in their trampling. And they have defaced and defiled all of our holy places. And I know that the British soul is awakening and stirring with rage at what these people are doing. These people came into our house. Many of them broke into our house illegally. Many of them were never wanted here. And they have come here. They have betrayed all of our attempts at hospitality. They've spat in our faces, and now they want to trample everything we have underfoot. No. No.
Douglas Murray makes a great point here.
If I hated Australia, hated the Australian people, hated Australian history, hated the Australian way of life, broke into the country illegally and spent my time trying to undermine Australia, why should I be in Australia? Why? What would I have brought the country? What benefit? What moral benefit? What financial benefit? What social benefit? The answer is, you'd have brought no benefit. I think we have to start saying very clearly, if you don't like it here, go. And if you don't like it here and you intend to make it worse, we will make you go. we have a couple of choices clearly at this point. One of them is, and I say this metaphorically for the time being, but it's not that metaphorical. One is to stand up, and the other is to beg on your knees. I don't think that the British public should be on their knees begging, particularly not to people who dislike them. So, best to be on your feet.
Murray's candid insights challenge us to reconsider our perspectives on these complex issues, urging a more nuanced understanding of the interplay between history, ideology, and current events.
The Christian world is as it is because of the legacy of Christianity. I mean, it's from Christianity that we get the idea of rights. Why do I say that? Because the reason why all men are regarded as equal is because all mankind is created equal by God. And that people may be different in their lives, and we're all different in our lives, and you may be a car mechanic or a king, but that we're all the same. We're all the same in the eyes of God, in the eyes of the Creator. Nobody to that extent has the ability to be, is by nature better or worse than anyone else. It's the adventure of their lives to try to be better. But all of these ideas, like the dignity of the individual, these come from the Judeo-Christian tradition. And without them, we would be, like China, or like the Islamic world, or like anywhere else. If we had a different tradition in our past, we would be in a different place now. But this was our tradition. This is our tradition. This idea that Western civilization is like a cut flower and you can look at it and enjoy it, but it's going to die. So how do we make sure that it isn't a cut flower? And the answer to that is, of course, we find the seeds that planted the flowers and we reseed the land. We replant the flowers, the trees and the bushes of our culture and of our civilization. And that's what we should do. That will be part of the task ahead. And that doesn't mean the dogmatic re-Christianization, although some people might like to go that route, but it does mean a recognition of the wellsprings. And, without that, nothing good can come. Without that, we will simply be a flower that withers and dies.
As the dialogue continues to resonate, it serves as a reminder of the importance of critical thinking in navigating the challenges facing Western society today. The battle for truth, history, and cultural identity is more than just a debate. It's a fight for the very soul of a nation. As times change, the past cannot be rewritten, but the future is still unwritten, shaped by those willing to stand for what is real. Will we surrender to manufactured narratives, or will we have the courage to speak, no matter the cost? The choice is ours. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.